In the last 2 episodes we have been playing with rotate to generate some interesting graphics. I think we need to stop here for a moment and have a look at what rotate is really doing. Here we have this simple simulation, and we can see this blue box right here is our processing window, and it has a size of 200 pixels wide and 200 pixels tall. So we have also 2 objects drawn on the screen. We have an ellipse, which is at position 0, 0. That's the top left corner. And we have a rectangle, which is 130 pixels from the left border and 10 pixels from the top. Now, what happens when we use the rotate function? Let's have a look. So here we are now rotating 0.3 radians, and we can see the x-axis is changing and y-axis is changing too. They are rotating around the corner of the screen. And you can see that still the position of the ellipse and the size and the position and size of the rectangle are not changing. They are all the time the same. They are moving in the screen, but those values are still. One way to think about it is this. Imagine we have a big piece of paper, and in this paper we draw a green line that we call X, and we draw a red line that we call Y, and then we pick up a frame, which is this blue box. This would be our processing window. Imagine a frame for a painting on the wall. This is our frame. Anything we draw outside of this frame we cannot see. Now let's take a pin or a needle, and we stick this needle through the paper and into the table. Please don't do this, it's just use your imagination. So what would happen now if we use our hand and we drag this paper down? So the paper will rotate in this direction around this center. Because we have a needle through the paper, this position is fixed. So maybe our paper now would look something like that, like this magenta color. If we had drawn a box here, a rectangle, then maybe now after rotating, because we are rotating the paper, we are also rotating both axes and are drawing with it. So all the paper moves together. The only thing that stays still is our frame. This is our new X. This is our new Y. So you can see this working right here. You can see that when we rotate, our X-axis moves, our Y-axis moves, and even our drawing is moving. This is actually what we did in the last 2 episodes. We were using rotation to move things in this fashion. And we were moving them on also at the same time a little bit on the x-axis, so we had this kind of spiral effect. So we are changing some things here we have assumed since the beginning. Until now, when we increase the x value of an object, it always moved right. But we can change the x-axis. We can rotate both axes in such a way that now x is pointing down. So what actually the x and y values mean on any drawing function, like point, line, ellipse, or rectangle, depends on the rotation. And not only on the rotation, I want to introduce now a new function called translate. What we can do with translate is change another of those assumptions we have done. Until now we always said that the top left corner of the screen was the 0, 0 point. It meant 0 pixels from the left and 0 pixels from the top. But look at this, with the translate function, I can actually move an object to the center of the screen like this. Let's move it down here to the right. And you can see that still the ellipse and the rectangle are on the same position. I mean, we are drawing the ellipse at 0, 0, but now the circle, this ellipse, is near the bottom right. And why is that? Well, we are telling processing that we want our axis now in a different place. We don't want them anymore on the top left corner. So in this case, we have our y-axis 133 pixels from the left and 160 pixels from the top. And what can we do with this? So now we can modify our last exercise to have our pattern drawn around the center of the screen. We just have to use translate to tell that our axes now are in the middle of the screen, and then use rotate. So let's jump back to the program we did last day, where we had this beautiful pattern here. And we were just going to add one line. At the beginning of our draw function, we will just use translate, and we can enter 200, 200, or maybe, which is the same, use width divided by 2, height divided by 2. See, it's just this translate call, and see how the program is changing. Since now this point is 0, 0, now our x and y axis are centered on the screen instead of the top left corner. All this pattern is spinning around this new center. Let me show it again on a very simple program here. What happens when we draw a circle on 0, 0? It should be on the top left corner, right? So now if I just add here a translate 200, 200, now the meaning of 0, 0 has changed. Now it means the center of the screen. So as you can see here, the meaning of x and y and width and height depend on both translate and rotate. Going back to our example here with our sheet of paper and our fixed frame, what translate really does is just move the paper up and down or left or right. So we are moving our drawing and our axis. A moment ago I explained that you can rotate here the paper around this needle. Imagine you remove the needle. Then you can just move the paper and push it to one side, and that would mean that the drawing maybe now is halfway out of the screen or in one corner, so it's all relative. We can move the paper together with the axes and all the drawings, and then what we see through the frame, what we see through the processing window will change.